Right, here we are on 1.4, day 2. This is Mrs. Carrivo over at Frost Junior High today. So we are going to do some more with our solving single variable equations here, just like we've been doing for the last few days. We're still going to talk about variables on both sides, but we're really going to kick it up a notch here today again. But hopefully it's still stuff that you're comfortable with, things that you've seen before. So yesterday we talked some about combining like terms and a little bit about distributing. So we're really going to take those and go more with those today. So today we're going to talk about distributing on both sides of the equation. And when we distribute on both sides, that's really going to kick up our plan for combining like terms as well when we're solving. So we're really going to take those to the next level today. That is the plan. So if we start off here with our warm-up. Our warm-up says, fill in the blank with a value that creates an equation with no solution. And then the second one is fill in the blank with a value that creates infinite solutions. So you guys, we talked about no solution and infinite solutions and what those equations look like yesterday. So hopefully you can take that a step farther and create your own here. So why don't you just take a minute, pause the video, and see if you can do those. All right, so here's what I'm thinking when I'm looking at creating these equations. First of all, I have to simplify a little bit, right? So I have a number outside of parentheses here. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute this -2 to see really what's going on this side of the equation. So that gives me -6d when I distribute first, and then the -2 times 8 would give me -16. So really this is saying -6d minus 16 equals -6d plus blank. Well, if I think about my solving steps from yesterday, the next thing I'm going to do is probably get all of my variables to the same side. So that means I'm going to add 6d to both sides to kind of really see what's going on to figure out what I want to put in that blank. Wait a second, those are both going to cancel out. -6d plus 6d gives me 0 on both sides, which means really my equation says -16 equals blank. All right, now if I want this equation to have no solution, then that means that what do I have to put in this blank? For no solution, the two sides cannot be equal. So I could put in 8 here. I could put in 0 here. I could put in +16. I could put in any number other than -16 to make my no solution equation. So it does say fill in the blank with a value, so you do need to give an answer here, but any number that's not -16, any other number would be a perfectly acceptable answer for this problem right now. All right, how about the second one then? Fill in the blank with a value that creates an equation with infinite solutions. Well, same thing here. I want to distribute because I've got a number outside of parentheses here to figure out what's going on actually. Now, I know this probably made a few of you panic a little bit. Oh my gosh, it's a fraction. Don't worry, we talked fractions already this year. Remember, just multiplying with a fraction is like saying of. What is 1/2 of 8d? Well, what's 1/2 of 8? It's 4, right? So half times 8d is 4d. And what is half of -12? -6. So this equation really looks like 4d minus 6 equals 4d plus blank. All right, so again, I'm going to kind of combine my variables just to see what I've got going on. So I'm going to subtract 4d from both sides. They cancel, and they cancel on that side as well. So I have -6 equals blank. And this time, I am trying to find an equation that has infinite solutions. Remember, if I want infinite solutions, that means both sides equal each other all the time, no matter what. So what I need to fill in that blank with right there for it to have an infinite number of solutions is exactly the same thing as what's on the left. So -6 has to equal -6. And that is the only option here for number 2 for it to have infinite solutions. So hopefully you guys did okay with that warm-up. Really remember no solutions and infinite solutions from yesterday. All right, so getting into our actual lesson here, I would think most of these problems you should be able to tackle on your own. Give it a shot, pause the video, see what you get, and then come back and watch the rest to make sure you got it right. With a lot going on in the equations, there is a very good possibility that we lose little details here and there, so it's really important that you stay organized. I know that a lot of people really like to see this equal sign and kind of draw a line down the equal sign so they keep it straight on what's what side. That's an awesome idea. I love it if people do that. You don't have to do that. It's up to you. But it kind of keeps track of your equal sign a little bit. So why don't you just take a shot at this one here and see what you get when you solve for x. All right, when I do it, again, the first thing I see is this number outside of parentheses. So I'm going to do my distributing first. So 8 times 5 gives me 40 plus 8 times x gives me 8x. I haven't done anything with the plus 3. I haven't done anything with my 8x plus 40 yet. So those are all I'm doing. But notice how I copied everything down in the same place, keeping it all organized. That's huge here when our equations get a little bit more complicated, and they're going to be doing that all year. All right, now, when we talked yesterday, we talked a little bit about simplifying, combining your like terms before you start moving from one side to the other. So on the left-hand side, is there anything I can combine? Well, let's see. I see a plain 40 and a plain 3. Those are like terms, so I can go ahead and combine those. So my 8x stays the same for my step above, but now I have 40 plus 3. It gives me positive 43. Everything on the other side here still staying the same. Notice I'm showing good work every single step, getting written on that paper. All right, doesn't look like there's anything I can combine on the right, so now it's probably starting to be time to start moving some things from one side to the other. I always like to move my variables first so that I know which side I'm moving the other numbers to, so I don't move to the left and then have to move back to the right. So I'm going to move my 8x over to the left. So here it's positive 8x, so I'm going to subtract 8x. So I'm going to subtract 8x on the other side as well. Here they're going to cancel. Oh, 8x minus 8x, that gives me 0. They cancel on this side as well. So I am left with 43. I'll put it here in. There we go. 43 equals 40. Well, that kind of looks like what our warm-up was just talking about, right? When does 43 equal 40? Never. That's never going to happen. So this would be a no solution. Now, do you guys remember the difference between no solution and equaling 0? Because that's not something we talked about in our warm-up. Remember, if it equals 0, you'll still have a variable. The variables would not cancel out completely up here like they did, right? You'd still have an x in there if it was going to equal 0. So if there's no x at all, the x is completely canceled. That's when you'll get a no solution or an infinite solutions. In this case, those two do not equal, so it would have to be a no solution. Hopefully that's coming back to you a little bit. All right, let's see what we got for our next problem here. Okay, now we got distributing on both sides. Stay organized, show your work, each step at a time, watch those negatives, take a shot at this one. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is start with my distributing. So over here, I'm going to distribute my positive 7. All right, on the right-hand side, oops, let's go. Sorry, guys, here we go. Okay, I'm going to distribute my positive 10 to both. All right, so on this one, I'm not going to draw my line. If you like to draw the line, go ahead, but you definitely don't have to at this point if you don't want to. So let's see, 7 times b is 7b. 7 times negative 7 is negative 49. Here's my equal sign. My 1 isn't changing, okay? But now I'm going to start distributing my 10. So 10 times negative 8b is negative 80b. And 10 times negative 5 is negative 50. All right, so I did both of my distributing. Now I'm going to see if there's anything I can combine. On the left, I have 7b and a negative 49. Nothing I can combine there. On the right, I have a positive 1 and a negative 50. So I'm going to combine those ones together. I still have my negative 80b and positive 1 combined with negative 50. 1 minus 50 or negative 50 plus 1, however you want to think about it, will be negative 49. I didn't do anything on the left, so that's staying the same, but notice I always copy it down so that I don't lose anything here. All right. Now, nothing else I can combine on each side, so I'm going to have to start moving things over. I'm going to move my b's first. I see negative 80. If I move that one to the left, then I'm going to end up with all positive numbers. So that's what I'm going to do. But remember, you can do these in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to add 80b to both sides. Over here, they cancel out. So I have 87b on the left. Negative 49, staying put, negative 49 on the right. Okay, so I've got my b's to the left. That means I need to move my plain old numbers to the right. So I am going to add 49 to both sides. So here, negative 49, positive 49 cancel out. Over here, oh, they also cancel out. Now this is tricky because there is nothing left over here on the right. There's absolutely nothing. How do I write nothing in math? I write it with a 0, right? Don't just move your equal sign. That's no good. You got to actually write 0 if there is nothing left on that side. So 87b equals 0. I am not finished yet, right? I still have a b. It's not a no solution. It's not just 87 equals 0. It's 87b equals 0. So I need to keep going. And now I need to divide both sides by 87. Over here, 87 divided by 87, those cancel out. I'm just going to move over here. So all I'm left with is b on this side equals, what is 0 divided by 87? 0. So my final answer here, is b equals 0. Right there. So notice the difference between the last one and this one, right? On the last one, no more variables. I had just 43 equals 40. That's when it was no solution. On this one, I still had the b there. That's why I had to divide by 87, and I got b equals 0. So those are the two that get confused the most often, is when is it no solution and when is it b equals 0. You can still have 0 as an answer. 0 is a number. It's okay. But you got to be careful because we still have the variable involved. That's when we have b equals 0 instead of a no solution. All right, hopefully you're starting to figure out how to keep those straight. What else we got? Oh, here we go. Lots going on in this one. Now be careful. We got a lot of negatives in this one. So go ahead and take a shot, but stay organized. Watch those negatives. All right, so if I'm going to get started here, I'm going to look and see, what can I distribute here? Well, I see I have to distribute my negative 8. Now, when I get into distributing with negatives, I like to circle the whole number that I'm distributing so I don't miss that negative. Now, if I look at the next one, there's parentheses there, but I don't see a number outside. Remember that anytime you have parentheses with nothing written out in the front, it's that invisible 1 hiding out there. So I'm really distributing negative 1 to that set of parentheses. So again, I like to circle that so I don't lose my negative sign when I'm doing my multiplying. All right, so over on the left, I'm just going to let that be for a minute. You could have maybe done a little bit over there in this step, but I'm just going to leave it alone for now just to keep things straight. So I'm going to start distributing in my first one. So negative 8 times m gives me negative 8m. Negative 8 times negative 7 gives me positive 56. There's an easy one to goof up. Watch that that's a plus 56 and not a minus 56. Okay, now I'm going to distribute to my second parentheses. Again, I'm distributing negative 1. So negative 1 times negative 3m gives me positive 3m. And negative 1 times positive 8 gives me negative 8. Here's another one. That's an easy one to miss. Make sure that that's minus 8 down there and not a positive 8 because you have to multiply it by negative 1. Okay, so we got our distributing done. Now I'm going to go for combining some like terms. So here I see negative 6m plus 4m both on the same side. So I have negative 2m on this side. All right. I have negative 8m and positive 3m on the right. Maybe I'll give it a double underline there. Negative 8m plus 3m gives me negative 5m. And then I also have positive 56 and negative 8, right? Positive 56 minus 8 gives me positive 48. So a lot to combine before we start moving things. If you move things right away, oh my goodness, you're going to have a headache trying to keep everything straight. So combine those like terms before you start moving. All right, so I've combined everything I can combine. Now I think I'm going to move my variables just to make sure. So it looks like I'm going to move my negative 5m to the left. It'll give me a positive number, I believe. So let's go plus 5m on both sides. So on the right, they're going to cancel out. They're going to be gone. On the left, I have negative 2m plus 5m gives me a positive 3m equals 48, right? We didn't touch the 48 yet. All right, now I'm almost there. So I am just going to divide both sides by 3. Oh, that one's a little hard to read. Let me give you a different color here. Divide both sides by 3. On this side, 3 divided by 3 cancels out. I get m equals 48 divided by 3 gives me 16. So m equals 16 if you keep all those negatives straight. So hint for you when you have to distribute a negative, I like to circle that whole thing so you don't forget to multiply by that negative when you're distributing. All right, here's our last one before we wrap it up today. Go ahead and see what you can do with this one. All right, so what I see is we have that sneaky little negative 1 going on again in here because there's parentheses with no number right next to it. So again, it's negative 1 that I'm distributing. You're not distributing the 3v. There is a minus sign in between. You're distributing negative 1. All right, so on the left, nothing happening. 2v plus 6 equals 3v, and now we start distributing. What is negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. And negative 1 times 2v is negative 2v. Again, negative 2v. There's one that could go wrong, so double check that you caught that one. All right. Now, let's look for some things to combine. 2v and 6 on the left, nothing I can combine there. 3v and negative 2v on the right, we can combine that though. So keeping the 2v plus 6 on the left. 3v minus 2v gives me just 1v. I like to write it as just v. You can write 1v if you want to. It's up to you. And then I still have my minus 2 over here that hasn't been touched yet. Okay, moving my variables over to the left next. So I'm going to subtract v from both sides. Over here they cancel. 2v minus v gives me 1v left. I'm just going to write it as v. You could always write it as 1v if you'd like to. So I have v plus 6 left on that side equals negative 2. Last step is going to be to subtract 6 from both sides. Cancels out over here. I'm left with just v equals negative 8. So if you caught how to distribute that negative, okay, you should end up with v equals negative 8. Remember that minus sign in between the 3v and the parentheses means you don't distribute that 3v. No way. That's that hidden negative 1 in there that you need to distribute. So be careful of that. All right, hopefully this helped you be a little bit more confident in your solving, right? So not a lot of new tips today. It's all kind of the same thing, but just be careful when you're distributing. Is the number that you're distributing positive or negative? Remember, I like to circle that negative number. Helps me keep track of it. That's the biggest thing. And then combine those like terms, just like we talked about yesterday. Combine the like terms before you start moving them. That will be huge. All right, if you see on the next page, there is your homework worksheet. Should be all linked up, ready for you to practice today.